for me personally, I mean, again, that's what I envisioned, and it's, again, it's a piece of information that I utilize to make decisions, so I'm not saying if it comes back, I'm definitely gonna vote one way or the other, but it will be helpful, so. But yes, I would accept it for those
What's our
purposes.
reach right now on engagement HQ?
I don't have that specific, and we can ask Megan, but
I mean, if it's 500 people out of 3,500 homes, I mean, you're not
Y- y-
really getting the word out.
you're probably getting close to statistically valid, but different kind of polling issue. If I might, Mr. President, just suggest two of the models. So we had a base model that I initially showed. I think it was $180 for the PD and $100 for the gate. That is sustainable for 20 years, period. So that was $10 a month. And the other model maybe to ask about is the one that had the roads capital. So slush fund. Part of my thought and intent was that those CIP, and sure, it's not cast in stone, but it's intended to give you something to work with, but that the funds would be directed to that, so that we would have the equipment needed and $350,000 per year to use. So, as a suggested other alternative, go to that one, which was 300 and 165, resulting in $26 a month. So as two that we could run to get some feedback on. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Very good. Mr. President,
The question came up earlier too in our discussion about how do we have all this extra money, how do we control who spends it? Well, the people on this board and the staff that, first, the most important job of the board is to pick a general manager, so that's how we control it. And then ultimately, the people that show up and have interest in what is, how we're spending the money and sit out there and influence the decisions that are made up here. So I wanted to answer that question too. Do you have something else?
yeah, Mr. President, two things. Director Jensen, relative to the statement that we could use a license plate reader, the companies that handle that level of security system, both of them, I've been asking myself for years, they can't do it. So the statement that we could have just done that is not accurate.
Well, that was presented, though, as part of the 2018 gate presentation. We were presented with two possible technologies, either the RFID or the LPRs, and
So as we went through that process, and again, I think I'd been here a month or two or something and was trying to present this, prior information identified that. What I'm saying is, as we moved forward, at the time, we presented, I don't remember what the name was, Dwelling Live, yeah. So that was a company that did that kind of work, and hey, look, these, I don't know how many of you folks were there, these are the kinds of things that they're talking about they can do. And I think reference to their plate reading, license plate reading, was in that mix. What I'm saying is, things certainly changed. We didn't use Dwelling Live. We went another direction. And that capability has been asked about repeatedly by me, and they don't have it. So to tell people, I guess I'm bothered by that, because it was a statement that is not, I can't do it. So please, don't tell them that we're not doing it and make them think that we could have just done it.
But
We're
then
doing what we can with the technology for those systems. And again, when we went out looking, it's not like there's 25 companies doing that level of activity. So access control is really what it's called. It's not an RFID, it's access control. It was the improvement on the permitting or the passes, improving on the system and how can you get a pass to someone, so we could avoid the forgeries that we were experiencing and illegal access. So That was my first point, Mr. President. My second point, Director Jensen, was your statement that management lied. And I'm resentful of that. I don't know what the basis is for you to say that about whomever it is you're saying it. And so please forward information so that we can do something about that. But boy, that's really bothersome.
It is bothersome, and I can be very specific. I thought I was. We were told by Interim Chief Kermode that all of the tasers in the police department's inventory were beyond their serviceable age. That was not true. That was a lie. At least 3 of the tasers were 2 years old or less, and then the other 7 tasers were still in service. Were they not under warranty? Yeah, they weren't under warranty anymore. Or maybe, I don't even know, because we didn't have records showing when they were purchased. But when you come in here and say all of the tasers are beyond their serviceable age, that was a lie. And if we're going to spend $23,000 on something, it's incumbent on you to make sure that, yes, those need to be replaced. You didn't do that. You just trusted whatever Mr. Kermode said.
I don't recall the statement that he made that you're referring to. So
It's on video.
okay, I'll look for that now that I know what you're talking about. That was it, Mr. President.
More discussion up here before I turn it over to the public? Anything? I thought that was good discussion. Yes, sir. I guess I'm supposed to give you my long track.
You actually don't have to. It's not a requirement.
Okay, my name's Steve Miles. I've been a resident for over 20 years, and I have to say that today's meeting is a great example of how well you don't get along. Mr. President, you have done a crummy job of keeping the meeting on task. It's supposed to be about the budget and about the increase in fees, and it's gotten off into a number of different tangents. So, my question is, and obviously you don't have a plan, and we're getting so close to November, you need to get a plan together to educate Bear Valley residents so that they can make an educated decision on this rate increase or tax increase that you're asking the public for. Obviously, you don't have a plan. You need to do that like last month, 6 months ago, not talking about it now to form a meeting and then come up with a plan and then get it out to the public. You're looking at least 30 days before you can even get anything out to the public. This has failed twice before. So what makes you think it's going to pass this time? Okay, obviously it's needed. I agree with a lot of people that we're going to be in a really sad financial shape if we don't do something. What is your plan B? Do you have a plan B? What if it doesn't pass? Then what happens? You need a plan B now. This should have been done 6-8 months ago, at least. And it's gotten to where it's crunch time, and if you don't educate and do a really good job of educating, it's not going to pass again, and you don't have a plan B. You have no idea what you're going to do. Secondly, it's been brought up, and it was off task, about the appointment for the empty seat. I sat on the phone with 6 other people that wanted the seat last time, that you guys, and I'm not sure how the voting went, but the board voted to reinstate Mr. Carlin after he had lost an election to the seat. And when I applied for that, there was one gentleman that was probably more qualified than all of you sitting there. And I can't remember, I think it was a Mr. Hernandez. He had sat on the Santa Paula City Council. He had sat on enterprise boards. He was the most qualified person, but you all saw to it to put Mr. Carlin back in the seat. That's why the public doesn't trust you. You voted against what the public wanted and reinstated someone that had been on the board, rather than putting a fresh face on the board, whether it was Mr. Hernandez or a lady that got a vote or myself or whomever. someone with fresh perspective needs to sit here because the public doesn't trust you all. I mean, it's really that simple. And I hope whoever voted to put Mr. Carlin back on the board does not get reelected because you misused the trust of the public. So, the presentation was very well done. I thought it was very informative. It shows a great need. Unfortunately, unless you really educate the public, I mean, you're going to have to really go over and above. It's not going to pass. And then what's going to happen? You don't have a plan B. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miles. Sandy?
Sandy Williams. I won't give my lot in track, I guess. Okay, so I haven't been to a meeting since pre-COVID. Now that you've opened it back up, I hope to start attending again. I've got some thoughts. My first thought, the presentation that was just given to us all. A lot of work went into it, a lot of numbers. I couldn't read a single one of them. My first request, put each slide on a single sheet landscape. Get about 50 copies for people to pick up so we can actually see what you're doing. I think that would be really helpful for and I agree with what Steve said on the communication. The survey that you did in 2020 I thought was worthless. I think if you're going to have a survey, you got to put out some facts first. What you showed today was great. Here's how much we're getting in on income for police. Here's how much we're getting for gate. Here's how much we're getting for roads. And here's what it's costing us. Lay that out so people can make an educated decision where they want to go. I think that would be really helpful. The models that I could kind of see that you went through on the bottom lines, I was kind of looking at the 19 million generated at the end of 2 models. One was one of the more expensive ones. One was without the PD. Bottom line at the very end looked very similar. I would be happy to pay to keep the PD. I think there were some points made about liability that probably concern a lot of people. Hopefully those could be worked out. I kind of agree with the previous speaker that I don't think there's any way you're going to get 2/3 of the people in this valley to approve it. And so then you need a plan B. And I have a thought on plan B, and I may be way out of line. I know I mentioned it to Bill a year or so ago, or 2 years ago. We're talking about raising money through the taxes to the people in this valley, or, you know, getting rid of services that a lot of us enjoy. I don't know if this is a possibility, but when this valley was set up, there must have been some negotiation that we're getting 1/5 of 1% off the property taxes for the general fund. I recognize the fact we don't have sales taxes and bed taxes and all that stuff. It seems to me that we need someone to do research, and there's a guy on next door, I forget his name, Dave Hansen, that's done a lot of research on what's gone on in this valley. I think it would be a wonderful project to, how did that 1/5 of 1% come about? Is it the same for all the communities? Is it the same for all gated communities that have their own roads, their own police department, their own water infrastructure? I don't know, but I'll bet you that 1/5 of 1% back in the 70s when it was set up may have been enough money to pay for the PD and some of the other stuff we have, but I bet you right now it won't even pay for that. So, you know, maybe it's getting together with the Board of Supervisors of the county or whoever could make that decision, and just getting a whole lot of people to go down there and see if we could get it changed. I don't know. Maybe that's not a possibility. I'm way off ground, but that would be a thought on a plan B. And I guess that's about it.
agree with what Sandy was saying. We discussed gas taxes a while ago, and we all pay the gas tax, but we don't get any contribution from that from our community. And I do think that we should be pressing Kern County on that one. The whole concept here is to have money in the bank to be able to do infrastructure needs of a 52-year-old community. Being a resident here for 35 years, I've seen this place in its heyday. We are a one of a kind. It is so special. I think we need to get this right. Don't rush it. I do want to see an example of the association or an independent company handle the gate. One less thing under the CSD's budgetary constraints, I think, is a good thing. The BVSA can, like Director Jensen was saying, rebuild something at a heck of a lot less cost than the district can, being a government agency. So we need to look at all of these options. And again, in my heart, as a real estate broker, we have got to get this right. We cannot take a chance of not having the funds we need to keep this place up. So if it matters of waiting, you said we've got 7-8 years. I hate to be telling people that when they're coming in anxiously buying in this community, but again, we have got to get people educated properly. And it's not just a poll saying this amount or this amount. The facts and figures and reality of like to like. No slush, and again, funding these accounts gives us the money back into the general fund, as it should be, to be starting to work on infrastructure of roads and water of 52-year-old facilities. So that's to me the key. It's going to be town halls. It's going to be a lot of education. I would love to see something pass this year, but if it's not going to, and if it's not sufficient enough, I'd like to see it fully funded with an index, okay? And again, if people want to live here and want what we have, which is like nowhere else, then they're going to need to open their pocketbooks a little bit more and pay for it. And it's really not that much money if you break it down monthly, daily. It's really not that much money. Thank you. I'm thrilled we're starting this. Absolutely thrilled we're starting.
Thank you, Ms. Carey. On the comment about the gas tax, I had face-to-face conversations with Supervisor Scribner. His counsel told him they can't do it, and that's the end of it. I can't get past their general counsel. But I appreciate it.
Mr. President, and to add on that, and I think it was three years ago, maybe even, the board talked about it, and the approach was to kind of put our eggs or backing into the CSDA legislative approach to try to change that at more of a state level.
You guys? Yes. Mrs. Horswell, I think?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, my husband and I have been here before. Lisa Horswell. We own 2 properties here, as a lot of you know. First, I'd like to commend you on your modeling effort. I think you all are aware, I've mentioned before, I have a financial background. I am a CPA by training, so I appreciate all the work and time and effort that yourself and your staff have put into this. As a side comment, I think it's negligent that this organization has not had this kind of process and budgeting and planning for no less 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. An organization that runs like a government entity is irresponsible if you don't have this kind of plan. People love this community. As you all know, I am new here. My husband is not new here. We have family here as well and have every intention of staying and retiring here and spending the rest of our years here. We have quite a number of years left still to go. So I commend you and your department for running it that way. I do have a question, though. In terms of the road capital improvement plan, some of the models that you have quite a bit of money allocated to that. But when you first started talking today, you said that the road improvements were not going to happen until the underlying water infrastructure, which I appreciate and agree with. My question to you is, if you are having millions of dollars put away in that fund for capital improvements for the road, is it the intent of these models and the department to go and hold on to that money, or is that for ongoing maintenance of the road outside of the water project? Thank you. If you would, when I'm done. My other comment, in line with Sandy and Steve and yourself, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. I agree. You must poll this community, not only with the CSD, but the BVSA. There's not enough communication from those boards to the public. You have people here of tremendous different demographics. You had an older community at one time. The demographics have gone down. You must fix infrastructure. We already know what Stallion Springs looks like. And if there is no plan going forward, we're going to end up like that. Thank you. I would appreciate you.
Mr. President? So I think what she identified was the first statement that I made, which is we recognize overall the roads need to be addressed. And doing something in a comprehensive way, and as an example, putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into some segment of a road today when we don't know the condition of that particular water line underneath it seems illogical, because we don't want to have to go and dig up a brand new road to get to the line that we're finding out we have to replace. So the first model that I had, which was the 180 and 8 and 100, which kind of the status quo, gets us out 20 years. That had 0 in it, and then I subsequently brought in the notion or idea that there's another area in our organization and operations that could be improved and made more sustainable by the funding of capital. And part of the CIP included $350 for road capital, road work. It's not that we would just save that as a nest egg. I envision that being used because there's a lot of work that could be done, and I'll say piecemeal, but it's an improvement over what was there. But it's not the whole comprehensive thing. So it's kind of like giving them a boost to be able to go and make improvements, because we don't know yet what the comprehensive water and road package is going to look like, and it's going to be just it's significant effort to do those. So if that answers the question.
Yes, just as a follow-up, so are you saying that once the water infrastructure gets started, there will be additional money needed to repair the roads on top of that, once that is done?
Pretty
Separate
much.
and aside from this.
Pretty much, exactly. So all of our efforts really, when we did the water rate study, the first issue was just financial sustainability, because the rates hadn't changed for so long. But we also recognized that funding for capital was needed. So part of what we did, we added a little bit more so that we had kind of a $750,000 amount in the rates, so we could be changing out electrical panels or rehabilitating a well and doing those things that we're doing, thankfully. So something similar to that, if that answers the question. Thank you.
More members of the public? Ms. Corcoran.
Hi, I'm Carolyn. I am new to BVS, and this has been a process for me to really educate myself about living in a community with a CSD and an HOA. That's a new experience for me. And I appreciate the research that has been done by Dave Hansen. And Mr. Jensen, you referred to the roundtable. And I joined that group simply to kind of educate myself, to avail myself of the research, and then also to be a part of a group that has concerns about our financial situation. But you made a reference regarding Mr. Grace, which I don't know what that means. Something about the decision about the empty seat, and like we had an opinion about that, and I don't know what you're referring to. I've never met Mr. Grace. This is my first encounter with you and your opinions, and so I just wanted to clarify that I didn't have any judgments about any of you regarding the empty seat or who took a position. You made some kind of comment that was confusing to me. Anyway, I think that it's really a simple matter of we've got serious deficiencies in funds that are critical to sustainability and viability of our community, and I'm concerned about that. I've moved here, I've retired, and this is where I am making my home, and I want that to feel like it's secured and that we have a future. So I applaud you as well for the work that you've done in the presentation this morning, and I appreciate the difficulty of the position you hold. And it was a little bit surprising to me in the conversations today. It seems like you could all benefit from some group therapy. I would hope that I come into this untainted by history. I don't know the history and the stories. To me, it's a simple question of this is the reality we're facing. We've got to work together to solve it, and we've got to set personal, emotional, kind of feelings aside, and let's deal with it. I've taken a lot of this information and simplified it for myself, which I'll share with you all after this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who else? Just a second. You'll be next.
I'm Laurie Rude Betts. I am a 33-year resident, and through the years, I have been dismayed looking at my property tax bill and seeing that same $80 for the police and $75 for the gate, when inflation, even at 2%, is compounding every year, and we are just sitting there with these insufficient funds. I believe that I credit all of you, Manager Malinan and the board, for dealing with this very difficult issue, which previous managers and boards have not been willing to deal with. And I want to make a comment about trust, because it's become fashionable in this country to accuse the other of outrageous intentions. And I find that the greatest weakness that a democracy faces, and it must be dealt with. And I would say if there's lack of trust, it's important for that person who does not trust something to seek an answer to his question and move forward. We cannot solve the great problems that we face as a community, a very, very special community which is in great trouble, without the board moving forward. We cannot remain split. So I encourage all of you to please deal with these trust issues. This is very, very sad and cannot stand. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caroline Carpenter. Lori stole my thunder. First off, I don't want to sound like a school teacher. You gentlemen need to work this out in private. I didn't come here to hear dirty laundry aired. I do appreciate, John Grace, that you gave an explanation, and that resolved my questions. I reached out
I
to you
appreciate
separately.
that. Thank you.
So, fix yourselves first before you can fix this community. And also, I came in here thinking, yeah, we need to raise taxes, but we're a community. I was thinking this dumb idea that this is a workshop. We are a community. We're here to work this out together. I'm not here to tell my neighbor, you gotta pay this, or you're asking too much. We have to come together if we want to remain a community here and if we want to keep the community lifestyle that we have. If we can't do that, then we might as well move to Golden Hills, move to Stallion, move to Alpine. It depends on what this community wants. So the first step is fixing yourself. Second step is letting the community know, somehow reaching out to them and say, here are your choices. We do something now, or we close our eyes, we ignore it, and we're good for 7 years. And then 7 to 11 years, know that your property value will change because each one of us have spent our life savings to be here. Not one of you wants to see your money go down the toilet. We all want to make sure that we can, if we sell our property, we'll make money off of it. So we need to work together and keep that in mind. If it takes follow-on workshops with more community input, but get a sign out there. Start letting the elderly community, if they're not on social media, start reaching out to the younger generation, the new demographics. Bring everybody, let them give a say, do a poll, but make sure you reach everybody and let them know this is our dire situation. We either do something now or we wait and see what happens. And we know what's going to happen if we run out of money. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else? Yes, Jiva.
Jiva Freebert, thank you all. Thank you for the presentation. As I've stated before multiple times, and I've asked and want a successful tax increase that we may need, but the things have to be taken into consideration. And we have to show due diligence if we want this to pass. And I know a lot of folks have said that, and I've really appreciated that. And we really need to evaluate each department, cost-cutting, savings, and any waste. And I doubt that there are any agencies that are 100% efficient. And so I don't think we are either. So our per capita cost per another person, on Dave has mentioned it's $290 per resident. With other agencies, maybe we need to do some more analysis as what it really does cost for a kind of department that we want. And what we want and what we really need may be two different things. So I appreciated that being pointed out. So we need to look at the pros and cons of our departments. And the fiduciary responsibility is the main thing here. With periodic reviews that was spoken about earlier and expenses, and the note of us exhausting our funds in 7 to 8 years. So, but we have time to do this right, and I think that was said before. And looking at cost-saving opportunities. Enlighten the public, that will be the way that we'll get it passed. Addressing overhead allocations also. Is that accurately reflected in the cost? It needs to be reflected in a certain way or different way with how other agencies may do it. So I think that's important to look at. Also with the savings and the fund and the slush fund, as you mentioned, I kind of like that word. Anyway, shall we have an ordinance, put forth an ordinance that says that no more than a specific percentage can come out to any entity, department, enterprise for that. So right now, as we all know, we're paying mostly to the PD. They've been enjoying all that while the roads and water has, lost in that battle. And I do support a poll. I think there should be multiple questions like the one on Civil Roundtable that said, do you still support police increase, but with cost savings or addressing those issues? I think a poll needs to have those kind of options in there too. You'll find a lot of people want to still have PD at some level, but they want us to do our due diligence. So I'm looking at that. The presentation, even online, when I went to check when I came in here and I saw those spreadsheets that we couldn't read, and I appreciate the copies that were made, but I agree, put them on a B size and let the public know they can come in here, because not everybody can print and do the color and everything. And hopefully that's available or will be made available. But I thought it had to be in the agenda as part of the package, and it wasn't. So I appreciate that. And HQ engagement, there's not enough people, in my opinion. I heard Bill's going to find out how that is, but it needs to get out to everybody. Should go in the water bill. I don't know if that's already gone out or will be going soon, but that kind of stuff should go out on the placards, the signs. It should be out there also to let people to know and make every effort. So I really appreciate you looking at all these things and not putting the cart before the horse. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Before we start any of this, the main thing we need to know is actual population, because I think our population is considerably higher than the figure that Dave Hansen had put out. What was it, 5,000 something? Okay. Between you guys and the association, we've got to be able to get a head count in this place, okay? And that's the only way we're going to find like to like if we're comparing our costs to other similar type communities. So that's got to be number one. We need to get a good population count. Thank you.
Can we rely on this, would you rely on the census we had in 2020?
I don't think a lot of people complain of that.
Who else? Other comments? Any more board discussion? Sam?
Could I just say it? I think that Mrs. Horswell brought up a good point, and I realize that you're taking, you know, the redoing the roads, redoing everything that's underneath the roads out of this at this point. But when you come up with, you know, on your best scenarios here, $19 million, that's not going to go very far if we have some major expenses on roads, or if we wake up one day and we don't have any water in this valley. And I'm just fearful that that's coming. And I think somehow, even you haven't done it yet, you've got to have some kind of figure in there so people can figure out what is the cost of that going to be. I remember Jim Nelson, probably 3-4 years ago, came up with, what was it, Kathy, 50 million? And it was and then somebody said it's probably double that today from when he put it in. I mean, we're talking about big dollar requirements. And, you know, this, even with these best case scenarios that you're putting forth, it's like a Band-Aid long term. It's just a Band-Aid. And I think people should realize that.